Okay, thanks a lot. It's great to be here. So at Neustark, we develop a negative emission value chain, which first takes CO2 out of the atmosphere and afterwards stores it permanently in concrete. And the key motivation is climate change. We have to reach net zero emissions, and we have to do so by first reducing emissions to the lowest level feasible. And all emissions we cannot reduce, we have to remove from the atmosphere and store them permanently. And here in Switzerland, we talk about a requirement for carbon sinks of about 12 million tons in 2050. And at Neustark, we want to develop such a carbon sink in demolition concrete, and here is how. We make use of the existing concrete recycling value chain, where in the first step, demolition concrete already today is brought to concrete recycling plants, where it's crushed into demolition concrete, and afterwards into concrete aggregate, and afterwards this concrete aggregate is reused for road construction and concrete as a replacement for sand and gravel. And what we do at Neustark is that we have already today biogenic CO2 sources, for instance biogas plants. They upgrade biogas and produce a pure CO2 stream. We capture the CO2, liquefy it, transport it to the concrete recycler, and afterwards we install our mineral carbonation technology on site, where we basically treat the concrete aggregate with CO2. The CO2 undergoes a chemical transformation to solid calcium carbonate in the concrete aggregate. And this way the CO2 is permanently stored, and afterwards this material can be reused as before for road construction and concrete. In addition, what we do is that we basically measure the environmental impact along the chain and calculate the net impact of the technology and issue so-called certificates, which basically indicate that we generated 1 ton of CO2 removed. And in the end, there has to be a customer for this product, which is, in our case, 1 ton of CO2 removed from the atmosphere. And the customers are usually either real estate companies which want to purchase concrete with a lower footprint, or it's corporations which have a very high climate ambition towards reducing greenhouse gas emissions. So why do we use concrete? We use it because it has the capability to fix up to 60 kilograms of CO2 per ton of material. It's a very abundant waste stream. So in Switzerland, actually the most abundant waste stream, with about 5 to 10 million tons of demolition concrete per year. And there is a recycling industry in place which already pre-treats the material in such a way that it's ideal for carbon storage. Here you can see our pilot plant, which is in operation since end of 2020. And this basically consists of a CO2 storage tank, a process container, and 2 reactor containers. And these reactor containers are initially filled with a wheel loader with about 20-25 tons of concrete aggregate, and they are set down on this container balance. CO2 injection pipes are connected, and then we basically flood these containers with CO2. And this way we can store about 10 kilograms of CO2 over a period of 2 hours, and afterwards the material is discharged to the silo and enters the conventional use phase. In addition, we also assessed the net environmental impact of the chain. And this is important because basically every processing step requires energy and materials, and in today's world that corresponds to an environmental impact. In our case, the additional steps are CO2 liquefaction, transport, evaporation, and mineralization, and they require basically energy, which is red, and steel, which is blue. And but if we sum up these impacts for a Swiss case in Bern, what happens is that we emit about 50 kilograms of CO2 while storing 1 ton of CO2, meaning that we have a net efficiency of about 95%. In addition, we also tested what happens if we use the material in concrete mix designs. And what you can see here is basically reference concrete mix design with the compressive strength indicated by the bar. And if we take the same mix design but reduce the cement content and carbonate the material, we can get, let's say, even better properties at lower greenhouse gas emissions. So this is indeed very promising. So so far we rented the plant to about 20 concrete recyclers. We store about 100 tons of CO2 in the last year, and we carbonated about 15 tons of concrete aggregate. And right now we are in the rollout phase, so we have partners all over Switzerland where we are going to install permanent installations which are going to sequester CO2, which means that basically our product is available on the market, and people who want to work with us can basically order concrete from our partnering companies. And last but not least, all of this was clearly a team effort. Thanks a lot.
Wow. Johannes, what a really interesting company. I think we're going to hear a lot from Neustark the next couple of minutes. And we have a question, a quick question from the audience. Yes, the microphone is coming quickly.
Hi, me again. I like your business model, selling the certification to the market. What is the current price you would need to cover your cost if you had a commercial price on your ton of carbon? It must be quite high right now, but what is the perspective in the future? How much do you need from the market to make this financially viable?
So today we are selling at about 400 Swiss francs per ton, which is because we have, let's say, very limited offer, but for these small volumes that's not an issue. So we are basically sold out for this year and almost sold out for next year. For the upcoming years, what's going to happen is that there are going to be, let's say, more and more technologies on the market offering solutions for a lower cost. And we are going to be competitive as we scale up. So we are going to be competitive with, let's say, CO2 capture and other storage solutions. And the reason, therefore, is that the capture and transport part is the same. No, the capture part is the same, but transport is, for instance, in Switzerland, we have to bring it to the North Sea, and there it's much shorter.
Thank you for the question. And thank you, Johannes. You're here this afternoon as well, yeah, if we have further questions to you.
Yes, of course.
Perfect. Thank you very much. An applause to Johannes.